In the months upcoming, there's going to be a lot of people who are talking about what went wrong this election. You're already seeing a lot of people point fingers. I'm trying really hard not to do that because we're not going to have a clear, fulsome picture of the things that went wrong and the different motivations of vote. We're not going to know that for months to come. But some things are starting to come clear right now. And I want to bring this particular one to you. And it's not going to be a shock. The overall, here's the deal. Spoiler alert. It was non-informed kind of, generally and to put them down, it's stupid people who won this election for Donald Trump. No shocker. This is new polling from Data for Progress, which confirms a suspicion that probably we all had, that there's a strong inverse excuse me, whew, that was weird. A strong inverse relationship involving news consumption or lack thereof and those who support Donald Trump. I'm going to read from this Data for Progress article from Ryan O'Donnell, the title of which is What Political News Engagement Tells Us About Donald Trump's Victory. Donald Trump won the 2024 election over Kamala Harris, and now analysts are searching for answers. There's no shortage of takes, some probably right, some definitely wrong, and plenty from people just using the results to confirm their own prior biases, opinions. For us, one factor was difficult to ignore: how closely voters paid attention to political news. We asked respondents how much they follow national politics across TV, radio, newspapers, and the internet, with responses from a great deal to none at all. After we pooled a month's worth of respondents before the election, here's who each group favored. Now, here's a chart. We'll put this on screen. And you're not going to be surprised to learn what its results were. That people if the November 2024 election for U.S. president was being held tomorrow, and these were the candidates, who would you vote for? And this is news attentiveness based on that question. Did you pay attention a great deal to the news or none at all? And those who said none at all, 51% broke for Donald Trump. A little, 49% for Donald Trump versus 42% for Kamala Harris. A moderate amount, 49 to 46. And then as you get more and more in tune with being interested in and watching the news, those percentages grow and are the majority for Kamala Harris. Now look, I don't think that it's an indictment, purely an indictment if you don't watch the news. I know a lot of people who are bothered, who have an emotional reaction, who need to take care of themselves emotionally, and checking out is something that they do. It's a self-preservation measure, I guess. It's not for me. My life is consumed by the news. My life is consumed by politics. When we hang out with friends and they say things like, oh, you probably don't want to talk about this because you're talking about it all the time. We're like, no, this is actually what we do. Now, in the days following the election, the loss of Kamala Harris, it's been less. I've had to kind of check out and take care of myself too. But I don't understand fundamentally having no interest whatsoever in the news, but it does shine a light on people who would vote for Donald Trump because they had no idea of what was at stake. This is why not just regular news networks and corporate media, this is why independent media is so important, because a lot of these people are getting their news, are getting their headlines, are getting what's happening in the world from independent media. It's just the wrong independent media. It's morons like Joe Rogan. It's clowns and fascist enablers like the guy who acts like he went to MIT but didn't. What's his name? I can't even think of his name. The guy in the black suit. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading from this article because they really go into detail here. The pattern is clear, they say. Harris won with voters who pay serious attention to politics news, while Trump solidified much of his support from voters who don't. But why does this matter? This is one of the factors that helps explain why 2022 looked different from 2024. If 2024 was about economic anxiety and high costs, why didn't Democrats struggle more in 2022 when voters cited these issues as top concerns as well? Part of the answer lies in who turned out and what they care about. More than 40 million people who didn't vote in 2022 midterms voted in 2024. That's not unusual. A lot of people only vote in presidential years, but this group matters. They're generally less politically engaged and more motivated by material economic factors like the cost of living. One could argue that this benefited Biden in 2020 as voters who were unhappy with Trump's handling of COVID-19 punished him at the ballot box, punished Trump at the ballot box. And we saw the reverse happen this year with voters punishing the incumbent party because of inflation. These quote unquote low propensity voters typically only engage every 4 years, but the limited news they do consume is often filtered through, and this is why this is important. This is why what I do and others in my space do is important. And it's important for you to share content from independent media to people on your Facebook page, on your social media channels, to maybe reach some of these people who aren't watching traditional news. This is it. These low propensity voters typically only engage every 4 years, and the limited news they do consume is often filtered through their social circles or personal media bubbles. Our data suggests that what little political content reached them was overwhelmingly pro-Trump, or at the very least, open to his message. Trump's campaign was tactical about going around traditional media, using alternative channels to reach these voters directly, and it looks to have worked. And it did work. And Democrats didn't do a good enough job, did not reach out, did not plaster independent media airwaves with interviews from candidates. They just didn't do it. They went to the largest, most elite. But you don't see a lot of interviews with politicians on this channel. That's because there's gatekeeping that takes place. Brian Tyler Cohen talked about this in the aftermath of the election, that he has to reach out sometimes 10 times before getting an answer back. And if that's happening to him with the massive platform that Brian has, what do you think it's like for somebody who's sitting under 1 million subscribers like me? It's even worse. I'm not going to name a bunch of names right now because these are still people that I have good work to do ahead of them. I'm not talking about people like Jared Moskowitz. I'm talking about others that I've reached out to. But there's a lot of silence. It's not even no's. So if you work in a congressional office or you're out there on Twitter or other social media, not in a congressional office, but you watching this right now, you could be doing a job, helping me, helping others. Reach out to your congressperson on those social media channels. Hey, you need to go on this show. Because going forward, it's independent media that's going to be winning elections for candidates. Not CNN, not the New York fucking Times. It's going to be independent media. They're going to have to get over themselves in Congress, in elected office, and quit being so precious about who they waste their time with. I'm reaching tens of millions of people a month. Tens of millions of people. Now, that's not BTC's level. That's not Pacman's level. But it's a lot of people. And to ignore this segment of content creator, of independent media outlet, they're doing it to their own demise and to the demise of the country. This is where information gets disseminated now. Not CNN, who does a bang-up job of trying to create equivalence between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Not the New York Times, with every other headline being Trump-friendly. This is where you find allies. What do you think? You can comment below. I'd love to hear from you. You can call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at Dollemore.com. Thanks for joining me today. If you want to support independent media, become a channel member right here for $2 a month. Click that join button. You can also go to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Both those are great ways to help support this work. I appreciate you, but do share these videos, like this video, make sure you're subscribed. We're in this together. This is a fight for all of us to save our country. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.